One of Marsabit's little-known secrets is that it is a county with two very distinct extremes. On one hand, there's a desert that is threatening to wipe away humanity, and on the other, there's a beauty that is purely pristine. This is the Marsabit forest found within the Marsabit National Reserve. Gazetted in 1932, the forest boasts over 157 square kilometers of land. This forest is guarded as if it contained precious treasure troves of gold and diamond.
Kenya Wildlife Service acts as the custodians of both the forest reserve and the national reserve bestowed upon by the county government of Marsabit.
Currently, it is the only source of life for the people of Marsabit. It determines the amount of rainfall the people of Marsabit will enjoy, and it is the only natural resource preventing the people of Marsabit from extinction. Its existence means the provision of water, a cooler climate, and socio-economic progress.
When you come to Marsabit, you are struck with a contrast between an extreme desert and such a rich environment, which is a standing forest. In between, you have different land types, including rangelands, which are sort of marginal lands between the desert and these very high, wet areas.
The forest is undergoing lots of degradation, basically due to overuse, or rather overutilization of the resources.
Inside, there are two natural lakes, the Elephant Water Point and Lake Paradise. This ecosystem supports different types of animals, birds, and vegetation. But here too, challenges exist. Because of a lack of pasture in the neighboring areas, pastoralists are allowed access to the forest. During dry weather conditions, animals can come here to graze. The increased number of animals is a cause for alarm.
Because of overgrazing, we have suppressed regeneration. And this has really affected the lowland reserve areas where we have so much livestock, and community really entirely depends on pasture and water.
Over 40,000 herds of cattle enter this forest, and most of these herds normally carry panga, and they cut trees for fodder. But because the community depend on this entirely as their livelihood, then at times it becomes very difficult to control, influx of livestock, people going in to remove fodder, firewood, and all that.
Fatuma Golo is enthusiastic about conserving nature. Her job relies on it entirely. She runs a tour farm, which promotes tourism to the local people of Marsabit. She says restoration and land recovery is of utmost importance.
Most people here are pastoralists, those who do not have much information when it comes to tourism and the importance of it, and they tend to have they go out and have this their action have negative impact on the environment generally. So we try to talk to them through different means, because you see, again, Marsabit is so vast.
She reckons that locals ought to be sensitized quickly in order to help combat degradation and in turn improve tourism, which is a huge source of income for Marsabit County.
If today, let's say, the Crater Lakes dries up, in case this forest will dry up, and of course then the elephant will move to a different location that they'll get better pasture. That will have a big impact on the community and on this town, or on the county in general, because I think Marsabit usually sells itself through the forest. This is the major attraction for Marsabit as a town. Marsabit County is vast, but now the town itself, this is what it offers as a tourist destination. If this disappears, then no tourists will come. The tourism industry on this side will die, and it will affect those communities who are benefiting from it.
You saw colonies of bees, but these are wild bees. Suppose we worked with the communities, and through some easements from the protected area, we set up very good beekeeping systems here, which is sustainable and which works through the value chain from production to processing.
Very few people outside of Marsabit County know about this natural resource, and the Kenya Wildlife Service, as well as environmentalists, say it is time for the locals to explore this forest and hills surrounding it in order to understand the importance of conservation. On the flip side, there is this. An extensive plain lying between 300 meters and 900 meters above sea level, known as the Charby Desert. The southern part of the desert is home to the Rendile, while the eastern part, which is towards the Ethiopian border, is home to the Gabra people. While many continue to enjoy safari drives to explore the sandy plains of the desert, environmentalists and conservationists are a worried lot. In the recent past, there have been indications that the desert is spreading very fast, affecting the surrounding ecosystem. Because of climate change as well as increased human activities, land which supported vegetation and water sources a few kilometers from the Charby Desert is now being degraded.
There are indications that this desert is moving or spreading from where it used to be originally. And so the efforts that we are putting today here is part of an attempt to put like a green wall in the desert so that we stop it spreading to many of other counties.
Throughout geological history, the development of deserts has occurred naturally, but in recent times, the potential influences of human activity, improper land management, deforestation and climate change seem to be the major contributory factors to this phenomenon. In order to stop the spread of the desert-like conditions, the government has embarked on an ambitious project to combat desertification, and it has everything to do with restoration and land recovery. This is Kargi area. The population here is anywhere between 800 and 1,000 people. The area has witnessed the effects of desertification for years now. Increased human activities, such as the cutting of trees for charcoal and for fodder for their animals, is partly to blame. When we arrived here, it was 45 degrees under the scorching sun, with the ground even hotter. But an exercise never before seen in this area was about to take place. The animals here have no grass to eat. They simply lick the soles off the rocks and stones for survival. And something has to change before the situation gets worse.
And one of the major build-up activities is to commence a massive tree planting. As you can see here in Kargi, and indeed very close to Charby Desert, is where we have the desert conditions which really we are here to try and combat.
A team of experts from the Kenya Forest Service and National Environmental Management Authority are here to hopefully begin an intervention that could eventually bring an end to the suffering. The challenge with such an exercise is that the luxury of choosing the types of seedlings to be planted here is not an option. Because of the climate, very few species can survive, and those are the most important and highly sought after seedlings, which presents another challenge.
You turn it like this. You wait for it to settle, for the water to percolate, so that you make sure the whole basin is watered.
Tree seedling nurseries is one of the issues that has been affecting the speed with which tree planting is happening across the country. And more specifically here, as you can see, the conditions here are dry conditions.
So, my all is done.
Efforts like these cannot succeed without the inclusion of the local community. At the Kargi Health Center, a handful of men and women gathered to ensure the project is a success. Over 50 holes were dug using hose, pangas, and even bare hands. The locals appear to be desperate to bring back to life this barren land. If they fail, they risk losing their livelihoods and food sources. Medina Amin is one of those who are eager to restore this land. She comes from Garissa County and has been an enthusiast in land restoration since she was in school.
The kind of degradation that is happening in my county and also in other part of Asal is cutting down trees for charcoal business. People are doing charcoal business, and the tree that is affected is the umbrella tree, the acacia, because they believe that acacia has a good charcoal.
In Garissa, she has distributed thousands of seedlings to schools and other institutions. She fears that if desert-like conditions keep on spreading, then the arid and semi-arid lands of this region could soon be overtaken by the insatiable desert.
We're going to lose livestock, we're going to lose people will die definitely, because, once we start, once we experience the desert moving from where it used to be to a new, new land, that is menace, that is disaster.
A few kilometers from here is Korole area, another flat and barren land. The area's key features are rocks, thickets and some wild animals, mostly hyenas. Korole has been a source of life for the locals and their animals for decades because of an oasis that still exists here. This saline water never dries up.
Hii maji inatoka tu kwa chini, alafu unaleta tu kijiko ama unatumia mkono yako, unaweka ndani mkono yako, alafu unatoa mchanga, alafu maji inatiririka. Maji inatiririka. Hii haiwezi kauka. Labda mchanga iingie ndani. Ikiingia ndani, community wanakaa chini, wanatoa watu ambao wanatoa hiyo mchanga, ndio mali wapate, mifugo wapate kupata maji.
For several minutes we waited for the first group of animals to arrive. We wanted to experience firsthand how important this resource is. It took at least an hour before they showed up. And it was a race of resources, both for the animals and humans. The animals included camels, goats, sheep and even donkeys. We are told that they had been feeding on pasture for the past 3 days before coming here, and for them, the heat and thirst has been unbearable. This little oasis is also home to different species of birds that strangely include flamingos. They have been here for several months now, feeding on algae that provides crucial nutrients for them. Their presence here is a puzzle, and no one knows which part of the Rift Valley they originated from.
We know that other factors, like for instance the impact of climate change, causes shift in the distribution of species. So certain species which exist in certain areas would disappear, while other species would then appear depending on what these changes are and how they favor the different species. So perhaps the change in Charby Desert is favoring colonization of flamingos.
If climate change coupled with human activities continues to ravage the scarce resources available here, then the worst for these animals and their keepers is a reality: death by dehydration or starvation.
Anasema ile maji anakunywa ni hii tu.
Ugonjwa?
Itakadeke ugonjwa ya jirani.
Mtacho haki ni mama kabanda.
Hakuna ugonjwa yote. Kwanza kukiwa na ugonjwa wala kwa beliefs yao hii maji hata inakutibu.
If this area is not properly conserved, then there's a likelihood of this water disappearing. In order to ensure that that doesn't happen, there are tremendous efforts to conserve this piece of land by planting trees. The 17th of June is recognized as the World's Day to Combat Desertification. This day was marked at Korole, where environmentalists, conservationists and people from all walks of life converged here with one purpose: to plant trees. It was an adventure never before experienced by the locals, majority of them from the Rendile tribe. They watched with surprise as the event progressed. For them, this was something new. Planting trees in the wilderness. Will the seedlings survive? Who will water them? Perhaps were some of the intriguing questions lingering on their minds. All in all, they knew this exercise was important to ensure their survival.
You've seen we have the oasis here. Unless we protect this is the livelihood of this community. It's a unique ecosystem and it's prone to degradation because there is a number of livestock coming to watering point at this place. Unless you sensitize people on this localized degradation, then we are likely to have this desert encroaching into the community rangelands.
The whole idea of difficult or not difficult is a state of mind. We really have to come together. because it's only when we come together that we find solutions. We have to sacrifice. We have to move resources from where they are not needed to a place like this where they are needed.
Restoration of this land, Charby and many other huge tracts of land will go a long way in helping this current generation and many others to combat climate change and the adversities that come with it. Nimro Tabu, Citizen TV, in the county of Marsabit.